think it's a little bit better with just us two because Ferris was getting super logical, and this isn't necessarily a super logical topic. It's more
Well,
of a
there's things that he has of very specific interest. I like that. For example, we started getting into the idea of spirits, and the oneness and expression of it, and talking about the functionality of thinking and analyzing it. And the logical thing is there has to be some sort of physicality. I think there is something to do that for knowing my spirit and stuff. You program it for instinct, and you relate to things on at an energetic level. You won't have your mind, you won't have your memory, you won't have your earth-based faculties. So you have to have something, a framework, and a more consolidated framework that's related to the energetic plane that you're in and physicality. Here, this is like where time is more or less homogeneous. In other words, it's equal. Time functions.
You can keep going.
Smoothly in every direction. Other planes, not so much. So, but the experience I've had with other spirits that are cognizant and willful, I would have to say that in that plane, they have a physicality, and they are a species, and they function there. They grow. Their time may be different. And their life cycles may be different.
Have you ever seen how sound waves look in physical space? Like if you
the somatic stuff. Yeah,
if you make it like a sound over sand, it'll like make a wave shape or a cosine of whatever the however, like if it was I'm not good with sound terms, but I know there's like frequencies and vibrations or something like that, and like if there's like high vibrations or low vibrations, it has like a sharp, jagged like look versus like a long, like broad wave.
There's amplitudes. It also depends on angles of attack or release. It depends on how it reflects in materials and also the shape of materials. So energetically, we do the same thing.
What I was getting at is I have always thought that the way that sound looks as a physical like structure, when you see sound reflected through its passing through a physical substrate, like and see that shape, that is what I think of as what our soul would look like separate from the body, like what the energy inside of us that's moving, the structure, like the way it looks is that like that wave, or so to speak, that. And then when we're like in a negative mindset, it's like a jagged, sharp wave versus like when we're in a positive one, it's more of a broad wave. That's something more sustainable versus something that's a short, like will only go a short distance. Does that make sense?
I'm relating it to some of my experiences, and I'm trying, as our soul's interaction with spirit in the world, as the focus where things go through, and spirit, different bits of spirit have their own densities. So the flow is a little bit different, but when they escape that, the frequency shifts. That's almost like Hindu concepts of koshas.
Yes.
But from my experience, the soul is just the brightest of all sparks that shows the condensation of the spirit that is absolutely you, that is almost immortal because it's compressed tight, but it also reflects all of your honest relationships with the universe. So there's all the spirit medium between it. You'll get all these vibrations and what have you. It ends up being more like a reflection of that relationship. With overworld.
Sorry, go ahead.
And our relationship with the overworld and underworld, where time has a different set of structures, they will all have their different frequencies as well, the different emanations.
That's what I'm getting at. Also, is I think that like say like lower vibrations, like for example, how the woke culture terms this kind of thing, like low vibrations, is like the lower frequency on a radio station, or like not a radio station, but like a megahertz like frequency. You have lower frequencies and then you have higher frequencies, and like higher frequencies in this model of relation I'm using would be a high, like a heavenly state, and a lower frequency would be like a hellish state.
That's a convenient way of saying it. I don't see it that way. I mean, if you're going to relate to Schumann resonance, the earth frequency, and resonate with the earth, that's an extremely low frequency. Doesn't make it negative.
Well, I was actually
it would be
thinking as I was relating that to you, that it would be the opposite, whereas a low frequency would be a positive thing and a high frequency would be bad because of the like. But I don't know.
I don't see it that way. What I see is physically we have a set of vibrations that work with us. Extra low or extra high that don't match our being is where it causes disturbance in the waves, where that the waves will kind of like white noise will block it out. And I look at like a lot of attachments to things that aren't real. Attachments to things that aren't real or lies. You're building a relationship with something that has no coherence with the rest of the universe. So you're attaching to white noise, more or less. And then that will reduce, it'll disturb how you maintain your spirit. And because you have nothing to hold on to it, because you don't have an honest relationship with it, it goes away. And eventually that reflects as a process on a soul. So it destroys your soul, because if you don't have an honest relationship with the world around you, that white noise eventually starts getting down to the most dense, coherent part of yourself.
And you would say like this white noise basically like deafens out your inner voice's ability to like guide you to be a good person, or even to like make choices. Like you would instead be kind of like a empty shell that just does whatever it needs to do to live and what people tell it to, so to speak.
I'm trying to, in a way, we are influenced by all the white noise from all the different sources. You know, that reinforces the programmed ego. That the ego is there to trying to stay to stay at peace, and it's keep the minimalist functions with the reality around it. The reality that we have, what people produce and program, a lot of it's noise, but there's a lot of success in it. There's a reason why it stays and exists, because to function in that chaotic system of people, they have a certain order, and because it's simple and easy, and because it's your parents and your grandparents and society, there's a certain amount of reality there. But what's not real, people accept it because they can function within it, because they look at it as a whole. And the thing is, they aren't aware enough to make a choice. So they get imprinted with this energetic reality, depending on, you want to look at archetype of personalities, but also the physiology that people have, because there's dynamics there. So you got archetypes that will fit within the framework of the contextual reality.
What do you think
Call
of
it,
sorry, you can keep going if I interrupted you in the middle.
no, that's all right.
Uh,
The Hindus call it Maya. So it's like an ego superstructure. And once you become aware of it, you can block that out and see it for what it is and choose your connections consciously. And that's much more healthy.
what do you think about do you think that the difference between people who have a healthy self-love and people who lack self-love versus have an unhealthy self-love, like lacking self-love, having an unhealthy self-love versus having a healthy self-love is kind of what the separation between the chaotic forces and the ordered ones are. Like if you love yourself, then therefore you would love your community, you'd love your environment. If you love yourself, you have to love humanity by extension. There's like an unavoidable tie between those things. But when you hate yourself or when you love yourself too much, then you would love yourself more than you would love your ability to help other people. And if you have no self-love, you would hate yourself because of your environment or what has been done to you, so you'd hate other humans also. Like, do you think that that kind of ties into the whole ability to have an awareness of your soul and to have a relationship with your soul, to have a relationship with the world in a true way rather than living in a world of lies?
I'm going to try to unpack all that you just said and try to simplify my answer. Having a healthy set of self-love is more like being respected as a person when you were younger, and in a healthy environment where you learn it naturally, so that your love of self is an extension of the world around you. Because as a human being, we don't exist as an island. We are a social animal, and the context of healthy self-love comes from healthy love of others and being respected by others. So it's a dynamic. Unhealthy self-love comes from trying to love yourself regardless of what is going on around you, all the negativity. And unfortunately, we also pick up negative, unhealthy coping mechanisms by it. And that gets reflected, and that also can create an environment which perpetuates it.
I was also thinking more along the lines of people who never get told no. You know, they love themselves because they like have always just been told that they're right.
Yeah, they're not right. Yeah, if you don't have a healthy sense of no and can't respect it, your ego has been programmed to be a sociopath, and unfortunately, there are studies, natural science about in any group of organisms, you're always going to have a percentage or ratio of parasites in the same species, and they looked at it by basic game theory about what is the expected outcome. In other words, our normal outcome is 1-to-1 ratio for healthy people, but parasites, if they get 4 no's, but the 5th one they get 5, a value of 5, they keep going. So if they get consistently 4 or less, they don't exist. If they get 5 and more, they exist. It depends on the environment. But their parents are constantly never saying no to them, and are, because they expect no one to say no to them as well. It's because they have learned a pattern of parasitical behavior of it. Are they conscious of it? No. Are they do? Can you relate to them consciously about it? No. Can you appeal to other things? Because basically, they're sociopaths. They don't believe that they're wrong. So they are on the parasitical side of the equation. It just is. Now, if you have enough people say no to them, the only thing that changes sociopaths in that sense is pain, fear of pain and death, and that can change of themselves could be a death. A change of how they can function in society as a particular pain, but it has to be sufficient enough for them to want to change. The problem is there's also another scientific study, people who don't have empathy because of it. There's 2 components to it. There's a genetic component where our amygdalas here that function are here in our midbrain to kind of negotiate our executive functions and our instincts. If there's a genetic component for many of these people that they're small, they don't have empathy. There's also these type of people influencing an environment with that type of non-empathy behavior. People's amygdalas will shrink. People who get the positive love and positive reinforcement, positive environment, and they develop empathy for others, and where they see not only is their good benefits you. In other words, if I'm in a family, if I make sure everybody's fed, they're going to make sure my well-being is taken care of. Okay? If I make sure that they're emotionally okay, or I stick up for them, they in turn are going to stick up for me. So you don't get the sense of the I, the ego, so much as we, and the empathy of we are a people, and there's a synergistic benefit of people supporting each other. Then you have a healthy sense of self-love, because you have it's supported by others. If your sense of self-love is from a lot of negative activity, by buying people things, by giving up yourself, giving up your own authenticity, overworking yourself, or getting dopamine from drugs or addictions, or high risk behaviors. All you're doing is reinforcing something that our natural body really needs from other people in a healthy situation. So that makes it that's where we need to make sure we build a healthy community around us. It's that's the first step of oneness, because when you realize that you and your family are a unit, and if you don't have family, or family's fucked up, you make fuck up mistakes. I have, fucked up relationships, what have you. But you work that, you develop the empathy and what have you. Some people don't have the inward temperament. Some of it is, you might call it soul, or from your past lives, or it may be that there's some genetic component where you really want to have the right type of empathy. You can work that out. But for most people, they need the environment to establish the pattern of where positive behavior brings a positive outcome for everyone involved. That's a long way.
That was a long tangent onto the second part. What do you think of people who lack self-love then? in the first place. People who just like were raised in an environment where no one loved themselves, where they didn't learn to love themselves, where no one they knew loves themselves. You think that this is a common trend in our society today too? Like just people who just don't know how, like no one they know knows how to love themselves.
Is it a common thread in any culture when we're at an end state culture? Yeah. It's where people are squished to such a point that um, it, if you're not genetically predisposed for depression, it'll definitely generate depression. It will also generate dissociative aspects of self, so that they're squashing aspects of themselves, so that they won't let parts of themselves live, because they have no time, no space, no support, no anything, and they're reduced to their how do I survive, and then they get squished to such a point where they don't even give a shit about that. So they're acting on instinct, and when you're acting on instinct, survival's there. But when you're a screwed up social animal, you're self-destructive.
So would you say that like the lack of self-love, self-hate, and like the lack of a positive community, the lack of healthy relationships, these are all like the fundamental like components that work against the concept of oneness or one species, one identity that we can share among ourselves to better each other and better ourselves through just being on the same page with other people. Like, and we have to combat lies and self-gratification and the concept.
Self-gratification's not that bad, but hey.
I should have clarified instant self-gratification. So
that's all right.
To help yourself without concern for how it affects the world around you.
Yeah. Historically, you touched on a very it is a truth, and here in our Western culture, we go back to Sumeria. Eridu was a working culture, but the moment you brought Enlil and Inanna in the city of Ur, that war and taking over other city-states, they're removing cultural context, their leaders that are invested in the people, and you're replacing them with basically managers and a protectorate, a governor. Their sole job is to remove wealth and bring it to the central point of power. If we follow this all the way up to current history, whether we, empire building, some empires are wise enough that you have to support people at some level so that they can maintain the unsustainable empire growth. But when it is sustainable, they care about the people, they care about the religions, they make sure that they have people who care about the people to help manage them, because you can't micromanage everything. But if you do, the empire falls apart. So it's this life cycle of empires. Feudalism. You get to the point you grow grain, but you can't grind it. It's against the law. Not only do you get taxed on your grain, but then you bring your grain to the feudal lord that owns the granary, and you get taxed again. And whatever you have gets taxed again. You can't make your own anything. Even the food, the cows and sheep and stuff, that all goes to the Lord. You end up fishing, because that's where you get your protein from. You don't get to eat your pig, unless you could say it's my pig, but that's it's a German saying. I'm wealthy, I have a pig. but you can't even do that if all this stuff goes there. So you have to have some way of feeding the people, but you remove their leaders. You tell them what to believe in. You tell, you don't have a village unless it's controlled by somebody that is loyal to the higher ups. They're not loyal to the people.
Sounds like our reality right now.
Yes, I mean, in 1830s, 1820s, in this country, de Tocqueville wrote what was great about American democracy, but it was a state of the fact that we had villages. They weren't perfect, okay, but they supported people that sent people to college to be lawyers, doctors, and churchmen. They come back, they're loyal to the village, they get elected to office, and they serve the country. Well, also in the 1830s, we had premillennialism thought coming in, taking over. All the educated churchmen of the big religions, the Episcopal, Presbyterian, all these, being replaced by people who are barely educated, Baptist, Methodist, with premillennialist thought, where they are focused on rural people that are not landed, who don't have the money to send people to be educated for better. So at that point, we've lost that village of concepts. Then we had a civil war, family against family, being manipulated by the rich. We want slaves, and the North wanted debt slaves. So we have debt slaves that won out. They use the federal government against unions, and come the Depression, multi-generational families were separated. They went to four corners of the country just to find ways of surviving. And we get to the point where we're surviving, but we're still isolated. And then we have World War II, and we function in platoons, squads, work groups, and corporations or whatever. And everything's been working into these work group mentalities. Our social orders, moose, elks, whatever, maybe not so much the Masons, but all these lodges, mirrored, like in schools, you get in a clique. And if you're in a clique, you're cool. And they will groom you for the next clique and bring people up as they migrate society. If you can't get into that first clique there or first clique here, you're disenfranchised to begin with. I don't care if you're white, black, whatever. You're not part of that group. So we end up trying to function at what society makes allowable, as long as we're useful. Okay. So I moved down south, and I was more useful, and the cliques are kind of softer. Okay. I still couldn't get into any of these cliques, but I was able to survive because of what I knew and how I functioned. And they found me useful, so they kept me around. This is up in New York, that would never happen. The cliques are so tight, so great, no tolerance of variation, never allowed in. Now, I'm seeing this as an outsider because I've never been in. And it gives you a unique perspective of being totally separated from society. Trying to have self-love or whatever like this is, no, I'm looking for anybody outside me to confirm that I'm a valid person. I had a few relationships in my life that gave me that, but the happiest people I know that have healthy self-love and also are aware. They're aware that they have had a good family that loves them, that supports them, and they see it. And those who don't have that may not see that. But the people that I know, they're really happy, they're self-love, or they have friends, they have family, multi-generations of family, and they're also thankful for it. But they also couch it in also context of God and religion, which had absolutely nothing to do with that, but kind of supports that mindset.
So what we need to do is we need to focus on these things that are good in other people and learn how to mimic them in ourselves. The best way is through, like they say, we have mirror neurons, right? So if we see someone else feeling some type of way and we are there with them, we can feel the way they're feeling through our own senses. If we
empathy.
do this, well, mirror neurons are separate from empathy. Empathy is more of a neurological, like a conceptual process of placing yourself in their shoes. Mirror neurons are just like a sense, like the ability to, our brain gives us the mirror. It mirrors them basically.
Mimicking.
Yes.
Not. It's pattern adoption.
Yes,
Mirror
yes.
neurons are multiple neuron pathways that reinforce the patterns that we already have in our brain. That is one approach to develop empathy, but we need the whole context. What I was driving at is we don't have tribes. Our evolution was dying when we destroyed tribes. We didn't get beyond a tribe. We destroyed the concept of tribes, and we destroyed a trust in anybody that is capable of being a leader who's emotionally invested and has the emotional and social IQ to make sure everybody is taken care of and looked after, and get people working together that can work together. And then people who aren't working together, get them to sit down, break bread, have dinner, realize that they have kids, and too, they have, understand what their problems are, what they need. And then they get to understand what you need. And then you start thinking outside the box with all the other relationships. You got to build healthy relationships in a social dynamic. The first thing colonial anything we just get rid of the leaders and destroy tribal cultures. And then they become dependent on relationship with the imperial colonial structure. Some Native Americans have retained some of it, but they've lost a lot. We've just Africans, we destroyed a good bunch of that. The
Chinese
only places
as well. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we had a lot of Chinese immigrants that we basically used like slaves. And then when they tried to rebel, or when I believe it was like World War I, when we were against China or something like that. I don't remember exactly. We put them all into concentration camps, almost as bad as the ones in Germany.
World II, Japanese. We treated Chinese badly because we wanted labor for the railroads.
Yes, that was it.
And then get upset because they segregate themselves into Chinese communities. We create ghettos, and it's the ghettos that you find the inkling of people working together to help support each other because they're being attacked. But that's not a healthy relationship because they don't have a healthy relationship outside. So what do? We end up destroying that. Like Nixon with the anti-drug laws, to get rid of the hippies who care, and the black communities who care or support each other that have dignity. Let's destroy their education. Let's destroy their ability to do that. We got rid of education for poor whites as well. So, but
thankfully, I heard that recently there was $1 billion that got gifted to the Einstein Institute for Medicine to make the tuition free for anyone who has a 3.7 or higher GPA. So hopefully that'll help some people in poor communities get ahead. It's been great to talk to you today. Thank you for joining me, Archonstone. It was lovely to talk to you. I appreciate your perspectives on things. You've given me some wonderful views. I hope that our listeners will check you out at your website. You want to share that one more time?
Archonstone.com or www.peopleembracingchange, all one word, .com. and you can search for Archonstone anywhere, and you'll find me anywhere. I got a YouTube channel. I'm not as I haven't kept up with it in the past year, so I need to get started at it. But that's you can find all my social media on Linktree/Archonstone. So